Imagine you're sitting in an interrogation room. Across from you is a man who's been accused of assaulting 3 women. But when you ask him why he did it, he says, "It wasn't me. I don't remember anything." Minutes later, his voice changes. His accent shifts. The look in his eyes is different. Even his name changes. Is this some kind of trick? Or is someone else truly speaking from inside this man? This is the real story of Billy Milligan, a man with 24 different personalities at the center of one of the most controversial psychiatric cases of the 20th century. Billy Milligan was born in 1955 in Miami. Later, his family moved to the state of Ohio, where Billy spent most of his childhood and teenage years in and around Lancaster, Ohio. Billy was a shy and withdrawn child. His father, Johnny Morrison, was a comedian and jazz singer. But behind the laughter and music, Johnny struggled with severe depression. When Billy was just 4 years old, tragedy struck. Johnny took his own life by inhaling car exhaust fumes, a desperate act born from poverty and mental illness. Billy's mother, Dorothy Milligan, was a woman facing both emotional and financial hardships. After her husband's death, she entered several turbulent relationships. She tried her best to raise her children, but she was also battling deep emotional instability and crushing poverty. Eventually, Dorothy remarried, but this decision would turn Billy's life into a nightmare. Her new husband, Chalmer Milligan, was a violent and mentally disturbed man. During Billy's childhood, Chalmer repeatedly subjected him to horrific abuse, sexual assault, beatings, humiliation, and psychological torture. In therapy and hypnosis, years later, Billy described the terrifying things Chalmer had done to him, tying him up with ropes, locking him in dark rooms, raping him, threatening to kill him, forcing him to stand barefoot on shards of glass. Psychiatrists say that this level of brutality at such a young age broke something deep inside Billy's developing mind. Unable to face reality, his psyche created protector personalities, alternate identities that could take the pain and shield the real Billy from the horrors he endured. Psychologists believe that Billy began creating his first alternate personalities somewhere between the ages of 5 and 8. Each one took on a piece of the pain, fear, or unmet needs that the real Billy couldn't handle. One to protect him from beatings, one to give him a sense of safety, one to endure the sexual abuse, one to experience joy through drawing and art. By his teenage years, Billy was experiencing frequent blackouts. Friends would say that one day he was calm, the next he was aggressive. One day he spoke with a typical American accent, the next with a Serbian one. At school, his behavior was wildly inconsistent. Sometimes he showed remarkable talent and artistic skill. Other times, he would suddenly become angry or completely withdrawn. Teachers and classmates were baffled. It was as if they were dealing with several different people in the same body. As a teenager, Billy was expelled from school multiple times and was even arrested for petty theft. Over the years, many psychiatrists examined him, including Dr. Cornelia Wilbur, who, through hypnosis, was able to bring his personalities forward one by one. Each personality had its own tone of voice, its own memories, and even unique skills. Arthur, a highly intelligent Englishman and scientist. Rogan, a violent, ruthless Yugoslav man. Tommy, an artist, painter, and joker. Christine, a 3-year-old girl, naive and playful. Alan, the spokesperson for the personalities, outgoing and social. Dennis, someone with a dangerous desire to harm others. Adelana, a young woman with a talent for writing. By the time he was 22, at least 10 of Billy's personalities had been clearly identified. In total, there were 24 distinct personalities, each with its own memories, preferences, and even handwriting styles. In 1977, 3 women reported being assaulted by a man matching Billy Milligan's description. Billy was arrested, but he claimed he couldn't remember a thing. During interrogation, his demeanor shifted constantly. One moment he spoke in a deep, aggressive voice. The next, he was calm, and then suddenly his tone would turn high-pitched, almost like a woman's. The prosecution was ready to lock Billy away for good, but the defense team presented a startling strategy. Billy Milligan suffered from dissociative identity disorder, DID, and it wasn't Billy who committed the crimes. It was one of his alternate personalities. For the first time in United States history, a defendant was found not guilty by reason of multiple personality disorder. Billy Milligan was acquitted of criminal responsibility due to a severe mental illness, dissociative identity disorder, which made him unaware of his actions. The court concluded that Billy himself, the core personality, had not committed the assaults. Instead, they determined that a female personality named Adelana was the one who carried them out. As a result, Billy wasn't sent to prison. Instead, he was committed to a psychiatric hospital for treatment. Under U.S. criminal law, a defendant can invoke the insanity defense if it can be proven that they were legally insane at the time of the crime. They did not understand that what they were doing was wrong or illegal. In Billy's case, respected and neutral psychiatrists such as Dr. Cornelia, Wilbur, and Dr. George Harding confirmed through hypnosis, EEG testing, and multiple interviews that Billy truly suffered from DID. His mind contained multiple distinct personalities. The real Billy had no knowledge of the assaults. The female personality, Adelana, was the one responsible for the rapes. Thus, Billy was declared not a criminal, but a mentally ill individual who could not be held legally responsible for the acts committed by his alternate self. From a psychiatric standpoint, dissociative identity disorder, DID, means that self-awareness is divided among different personalities. The person does not have a continuous memory of their life. Each personality can make decisions and take actions independently without the others knowing. So when Billy said, "It wasn't me," he truly wasn't lying. The personality in control at that moment had no memory of the crime another personality had committed. Of course, not everyone believed the verdict. Some argued that Billy was simply a skilled actor who exploited gaps in the legal system. But to this day, no solid evidence has ever surfaced to prove that his DID diagnosis was fake, and the majority of professional psychiatrists who examined him have confirmed that his condition was genuine. Being found not guilty didn't mean Billy walked free. Far from it. For the next 10 years, he was held in secure psychiatric facilities. After the court ruling in 1978, instead of being sent to prison, Billy was committed to the Athens State Hospital in Ohio. Over the course of roughly a decade of treatment, he was transferred between several institutions, including Lima State Hospital, Central Ohio Psychiatric Hospital, and in later stages of treatment, smaller private facilities. Goals of Billy's treatment: identify all of his personalities, understand the relationships between those personalities. Treat the underlying psychological trauma therapy. Attempt to integrate the personalities into a single identity. Reduce any potential danger to himself or the public. Gain control over the switching between personalities. At the start of treatment, doctors identified 10 personalities. But over the following months, they realized there were more, hidden deep in what therapists called the basement of Billy's mind. In total, 24 personalities were discovered, divided into two main groups: the spotlights, allowed personalities. These were the ones permitted to take control of the body. Examples included Alan, Reagan, Arthur, Christine, Tommy. The undesirables, banned personalities. These were the ones Arthur, the internal leader, had forbidden from taking control because they were considered dangerous. Examples included Dennis, Philippa, Kevin, Robert, Adelana. The therapists worked to communicate with all of them, trying to understand each personality's motivations and role. The biggest challenge: integration. One of the ultimate goals in DID treatment is integration, merging all the personalities into a single, unified identity. In Billy's case, some personalities resisted integration. Some feared that merging would mean losing their own existence. Personalities like Arthur were more logical and willing to cooperate with the doctors. Others, like Dennis or Adelana, were distrustful and disruptive. To encourage cooperation, therapists used techniques such as internal group therapy sessions, where the therapist would communicate with several personalities at the same time inside Billy's mind. By 1984, psychiatrists reported significant progress in Billy's condition. He had developed some ability to recognize and control the switching between personalities. Most of the personalities had agreed to live together in cooperation. A dominant, self-aware personality was beginning to take shape. Memory was starting to be shared among the personalities. In the years that followed, several personalities fully merged, and Billy's mind became more integrated. The result of this long and complex treatment was his eventual release. In 1991, doctors concluded that Billy no longer posed a significant danger to society. His mental control had improved substantially. He could be discharged from the hospital under certain conditions, including regular psychiatric check-ins. After nearly 11 years of psychiatric treatment, Billy Milligan was set free. Billy Milligan's treatment became one of the first, and still one of the few, documented cases of dissociative identity disorder, DID, that was officially recognized and accepted in court, and through the work of dedicated psychotherapists, resulted in significant healing of a fractured mind. Even today, some people question whether DID is real, yet the Billy Milligan case is taught as a credible clinical study in many universities and psychiatric training programs around the world. Life after treatment. Following his release, Billy tried to live a quiet life. He struggled with severe financial problems and was never able to hold a steady job. He made attempts to turn his life story into a film. A movie inspired by his case was eventually produced, though not a direct retelling of his life. In the end, Billy's story closed not with controversy, but with tragedy. In 2014, at the age of 59, he died of cancer.